We got Harrowings, and we are live with Lee Penman and Colette Nelson. And Colette, it's really nice to meet you for the first time.
Oh,
We're going to
thank
talk
you.
a lot about your practice and your journey to opening your practice. And we're seeing people begin to join the conversation. By the way, apologies, folks, for the delay, but we're aiming for 6 o'clock. It's 6:09, and I hope you got about an hour or so, Colette. Would that be
Yes,
an
yeah, I've
to talk about your journey to where you are now and from where you came?
yeah. Well, Hal, thank you again. I really appreciate it. I think the more we can get the word out there and the more we can change the failing modern medicine that we're dealing with now in today's world, it's the sick model. And we're waiting till somebody gets sick and then we treat them. And I mean, Lee and I have been working together, and Lee and I have always been biohackers. And I started biohacking when I was 14 years old. I didn't have a choice, Hal. I was diagnosed at type 1 diabetes, and I was told by my physician, with my mother present in the room, that I would never be able to have babies. This is 1984, guys. It's a long time ago, 2 years before, just after glucose testing became urine to actual blood. And they said I would likely not make it past 60. So my whole life, I felt like I was chasing something, right? And it was chasing life, Hal. It was chasing life. And I really started the whole, understanding that doctors were failing me. And I know every single type 1 that is listening to this and has type 1 diabetes can absolutely relate to what I'm saying. You feel like you're in a silo. You tell the doctors, listen, my blood sugars are high fasting. Why aren't they just play with fake numbers? And you guys know what I'm talking about. They're like, oh, we'll take a little bit more here. You know they're guessing. People, we know they're guessing because they are, because they don't live in your body. Today's world has evolved. I've watched evolve. Hal, I've lived in the world of diabetes right now, where we now have continuous glucose monitors, which Lee himself has enjoyed. We can now see the story versus having just a picture of time with the fingers, with a finger stick. But again, to reiterate, I want to meet people where they're at when they first have a conversation with me, and I want to try to reverse time. And the first time ever, we have medicines we'll talk about peptides. We can't finish this, Lee. You know how I feel about this. We can't finish this journey without talking about peptides, because they are the cellular signals that are turning on these different processes in the body that go disarray, because one thing that we cannot stop, and everybody listening to this, is aging. If you put neck and neck alcohol smoking uh, in the same line as aging can win, because aging is going to happen to lead us to death. So I think you have to understand what I mean by that if you really look at what's happening as our bodies age, if we don't do something to stop that cellular process, and that's what peptides are, they are cellular medicine, then eventually you die. And I'm not saying that you want to live forever, but I know we've got a ton of these guys, Dave Asprey and all these gurus out there that want to live, to 120, and they're saying 150. But it is interesting. And I do want to try to kind of figure out the little signals that we can do to at least give me quality in my ears. So I think to sum it up, you know, my background led me here. Unfortunately, or fortunately, type 1 diabetes led me into medicine. I had no choice, Hal. I had to figure this out because doctors were failing me. And I started doing things very, very uniquely. I was splitting Lantus before anybody split Lantus. I was taking Simlin, which is a peptide that is now
Okay.
called aglurintide. In 2004, people, I was using peptides peptides are not new. So I was using them in 2004 and being very creative with my journey and to figure out how to live healthy with type 1 diabetes. And I'd like to think I've done a pretty damn good job. I don't like to say my age, and I don't even know if I can say it. It hurts to say it, but I don't even know what I'm saying. But I am 51. It hurts. I'm 51, but I have absolutely no macro or microvascular complications. Macro being my heart, micro being like my kidneys, my eyes, my neuropathy. I have nothing. I mean, and I have had diabetes. Oh God, Hal, I think I don't even, it's painful, but well over 35 years. You know what I mean? And I it's something that this is something that I have to do. And when you do meet with me, it is a whole journey through your health, starting from where you're at now and what we can do. And I really take people wherever they want to go, wherever they want to see. Some people are very afraid. Um, when I think just, to think about peptides, because I've been around peptides now that I think about it my whole life, because insulin is a peptide. It is 51 amino acids, and we generally think peptides as less than 50 amino acids. So just to make this simple, because I literally try to explain peptides to people, amino acids are the letters, okay? Remember, thinking about writing. You guys are writers. They're the letters.
Yep.
Peptides are the short words, right? Proteins are the full sentences. But the short words get you quicker to where you're going. So, thank you, hello. I mean, they say a lot in a very short sentence, right? I mean, a word. So when you have these signals, they do something relatively quickly. I mean, they're working at a faster process than these proteins. So it's fascinating that, we have a fear of peptides, and I understand because we don't know them, we don't understand them. They currently are not FDA approved. We have some that are, and that is, we would speak about insulin. We will speak about GLP-1s. Oxytocin, you guys, is a peptide. There are peptides all over that we
Yeah.
don't often think of that are peptides. And right now, the government is in disarray about this. We have an administration that has RFK, who's like, ooh, peptides, but then they always want to make money. So we're doing interesting things with where we are with GLP-1s. We're going to make them cheaper, but we're not going to cover them by insurance. I spend hours, Lee, how many hours do we spend trying to get
I
insurance to
know.
cover Zepbound?
They make it harder and harder, and I it's like
Yeah, you
Yeah,
mentioned
so
it's coming up red for Medicare now, right?
yes. So what Lilly's doing, and this is very interesting if you think about how Lilly is approaching this, is they are doing a cease and desist on almost all the peptide research companies. So right now,
Hmm.
how do people get peptides? Well, right now they have few options. There's research peptides that will clearly state these are for research use only. They're not for human consumption, whether it be injected in, or swallowed, what have you. However, that is such kind of obscure smoke mirror type of language because we know exactly what's happening. So people have gotten mad. Most importantly is Eli Lilly and the big pharma, and so they did a cease and desist as of Lee. What was the date of that? January. God, it was a week ago.
that's the beginning of January, right?
Mhm.
Beginning of this month.
And
Hmm.
they took
Is that
all the
globally? Or
yes, all the GLP-1s. You can go to Lee. I checked out Peptide Sciences. GLPs are gone. Uh, Alpha Biomed. GLPs are gone. So all retatrutide is coming out in third, maybe fourth quarter of 2026, and retatrutide is going to be, basically it's going to be Eli Lilly's new giant, absolute giant. The Triumph trial just came out, phase 3 trial, 28.7% body fat weight loss, rivaling that of bariatric surgery. So what I'm thinking they're going to do is they're hesitating on the launch because I know they're going to give an indication, but they're going to make you pay for that. They're going to make everybody that wants, they're going to figure out a way to make money on this, including the administration, by not allowing it to be covered by PBMs, your, pharmacy benefit manager, and figure out who's going to, I think, the administration, so they can make as much money as possible, because this will be a job. This will be a drug. How this will be a drug truly that can reverse time with the way the triple agonists work together. It resets your metabolic system. And that in and of itself, when I want to bring this back to you
thinking
guys.
about how they work together
Yeah. So think about this.
in the body.
I want you guys to think about me as a type 1 diabetic, and Lee, as you're listening. When they told me I was going to die by 60 as a type 1 diabetic at age 14, why is that happening?
63 from that. Yeah.
Right. Because the metabolic processes are so dysregulated. My insulin doesn't work. Therefore, everything is thrown off. But what you guys are sitting there listening to me that don't have type 1 diabetes, God, if you do, then it's even more of a battle. But everybody that lives, every day you're living, you're dying. And unfortunately, your beta cell is getting older by the day. And your metabolic efficiency, because of all the endocrine disruptors that we live in this, especially in America, you're the food you eat, the plastics you eat out of, the pans that you fry on, the microwaves that you're using, all these endocrine disruptors. What defenses do you have? You are out there fighting a war with no weapons. None. What retatrutide does, and what I'm trying to correlate with you guys is my system would be a total breakdown because of high blood glucose. Any blood glucose is horrific for the body. I've always said this throughout my whole life. Blood glucose, your metabolic dysregulation is the root of all evil in your body. And we all just, oh, whatever, this is why you are what you eat. And I'm not saying, listen, it is very hard to eat a beautiful diet here in this country because a lot of our food is pure poison. And even when you want to do good, and you're eating organic, how do you guys, there's been so much, studies on whether the organic that you're buying over at Whole Foods, how truthful that really is. You know what I mean? There's so many lies, so you don't even really know the nutritional value of a lot of the food that you're eating. So my point is, if we know that metabolic disarray is the root of all evil in the body, and you have a peptide, retatrutide, that can completely abolish fatty liver, abolish visceral fat over all the organs, which ultimately can lead to death of the organs, help with insulin sensitivity, help your brain with diabetes type 3 because it removes that glucose response that the brain starts getting. Yes, that's dementia, is
Type
we linked
3, right?
diabetes type 3. So
Explain
now
that.
you've got, now you have a peptide that single-handedly protects your brain, protects your heart, protects your kidneys, protects your, this is the best one, the gut microbiome. Everybody will tell you opposite. They'll say, that's the problem with these. They cause paralytic ileus. They cause all these GI problems. And I have to say this, you're not wrong. People listening, you are not wrong. But you have to ask yourself, is it the peptide or is it you? And likely it's you, because you have to change your ways when you take this medicine. And if you can't, then maybe this, because it all comes down to you, Hal. If you're going to take a medicine that requires you to change your behavior and you can't do it, then I will tell you this, it isn't going to work because you're going to get sick. Yeah, it's a waste of time. So it always comes back to you. But I do think there's a lot of power in the new generation of what we otherwise cause weight loss drugs. But you guys, I will never say, for me, I do, and I have taken GLP-1, all the iterations of them for 20 years, since 2005.
Mm.
And I'm healthier because of it. And so when people say, how long can you stay on these things? Number one, I have diabetes. So obviously that's a different story because there's an indication, but there's no indication for type 1. I did this off-label knowing that it improved insulin sensitivity. I didn't have to take as much insulin to get to the same goal, which is a blood sugar between 70 and 120. And the more insulin you have to take to regulate your blood sugar, people, it's pro-inflammatory. So you're taking more insulin than the body would otherwise need to maintain homeostasis. And if you can take less insulin via using a peptide like, retatrutide or semaglutide or tirzepatide, you're ahead of the game because you're bringing down all inflammatory markers in the body. I mean, it's huge, Hal. This
Yeah.
is the future of medicine, and it will change the face of medicine in the next 100 years. You will hear this from other podcasters, other endocrinologists that say that in 100 years, if these become mainstream and become part of your DNA, we always say sometimes you just put it in the water, you will eradicate type 1 diabetes. Sorry, no, I wish one day. Type 2 diabetes, because I've taken many people off of 100 units of insulin down to no insulin. I've never seen it. This is incredible. Not just because I've seen it. We've seen it on The Biggest Loser. They don't maintain it. The thing about GLP-1s is if you stay on the medicine long enough, it's like you are resetting your entire metabolism for the better for many, many years to come. So that's
But
why
Colette,
it's
another thing that I was just saying, also give
yeah.
Hal a chance to ask you a question, Colette.
I know, but that never happens.
I'm
Don't let
serious.
me, Hal, don't
I
let me
feel like
keep
I have
going
to
because I
say.
mean, I'm the worst,
We'll break. We'll talk over each other if necessary.
I'm giving
Still love you.
to the
Lee
side
warned,
for a second.
Lee warned me.
Yeah.
I thought it
It's a
was a
heated
joke.
subject with me.
There's at least one comment that 51 Bravo, I thought 40. So I want to acknowledge our viewers when they want to ask questions. Please do. And let's just pitch your company for a second to your practice.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so it started it's Contour by Colette, and it's Contour by Colette, Aesthetics and Wellness.
Yep.
And the word contour I want to mean a lot of different things. Yes, contour obviously for your face, but contour for your body, contour for your mind, contour your whole life. So that is a kind of a fully circle, a full circle word that I mean a lot to me. And then the practice itself is simplistically, because New York City, when you make a PLLC, you have to explain to the organization that allows me to pick my name, who I am. I am a nurse practitioner. So it's Colette, NP, and Family Health would be what you would see on the general, when you're looking at my practice. But
There's a
it's
lot of
born.
letters behind your name too, besides those, right?
There are a lot of letters now. So I'm a letter collector. So I started off as registered dietitian with a master's in clinical nutrition. I became a certified diabetes care and education specialist. I became a sports specialist dietitian. Then I went on to become an RN. Then I went on to become a nurse practitioner, a family nurse practitioner, who now is a menopause board certified specialist and a testosteronologist. And more to come. You know what I mean? I love learning, and I love sitting in front of a patient, and I love being able to fix everything. I really do. I love being able to see a person really from every angle. So not only just Western medicine, Eastern medicine, functional medicine, cellular medicine, hormone, you know what I mean? Endocrinology medicine, which is really my forte, is endocrinology. But um, it just, I feel so much more, I think, like confident in front of them that I can tackle a lot of, whatever's coming at me, which is so exciting.
Tell me how you and Lee connected. Lee's in New York City right now in Colette's apartment there, and Colette is in LA, so the practice is on both coasts, bi-coastal. But I'd love to hear the story of how you 2 met. Lee has not told me, by the way, so I don't know.
Oh, wow. Lee, where do we start, Lee? So
Well,
I
we
think we
started
should,
in the bodybuilding world, really,
yes.
because I was a writer in the bodybuilding world, and I I was working in a metaphysical store in the West Village for like 10 years or so when I first moved to New York City, right down on Christopher Street in the West Village. And I started getting the bodybuilding magazines again after being away from them for so long. And then I just happened to focus on muscular development. Who Colette's fiance at the time was working in some capacity for. I can't remember what Dave was on there. It was one of the right staff editors, wasn't he?
Yep.
And I harassed him for to get me into the magazine over and over again. And because he wasn't technically the editor of the magazine, he says, "Well, maybe you can speak to my fiance because um, she does the Species Nutrition, which was a nutrition company, and there's a newsletter, and she could use somebody to help put together the newsletter every month if you were interested." So, of course, but I think the thing that I'll let you have a word, but I just thought I'd get the word while I can.
Nicely done, Lee. Nicely done.
I would grab it because any second I'm going to lose it.
Yeah, no.
Because um, but the funniest thing was, and the thing I'll always remember about the first time I met Colette, I didn't even meet her. I was at the New York Pro in 2008, and I went there just to meet Dave, and I was at the prejudging, and they did some stupid contest for the
Yes.
female competitors where you had to do pull-ups. Like, how many pull-ups can you do? You know what I mean? And the next contestant was announced, and over the loudspeaker came the name Colette Nelson. And it was like somebody just came at me with their fist and punched me in the stomach. I was like, I know this woman. You know what I mean? And it was a weirdest thing, how
Yeah.
and it was like we'd known one another before. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
And we,
past life experience maybe.
oh,
yeah,
100%. Like Hal, like Lee knows this, but I'm glad that he can hear this, but like, we are like an old married couple. I mean, we really are. I mean, we just click. Lee knows what I'm thinking. I know what Lee's thinking. We work magically together. This was a blend that I would joke with Lee years ago. Don't worry, Lee. We're gonna open up our own practice. Lee's like, what? Like just like, really? Is this really gonna happen? And I'm like, no, Lee, this is gonna happen. We're gonna have our own practice. And I kept saying, like, Lee, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this. Literally 10 years ago, Lee, wouldn't you think? Like maybe 10 years
yeah.
ago when I started this whole
And you
and Lee is
started the
just
nurse
going,
company.
and I'll tell you what, how, it's almost like incredible. Like Lee really, it was essential in me finishing school. I was working a full-time job. I was working at an endocrine office. And Lee and I was struggling just to get everything done. And Lee kept my whole life in alignment, helped me get through school. I graduated summa cum laude with a 4.0, which is incredible. I can't even believe it. And Lee, I don't know if anybody's listening, but Lee was an incredible, let's just say, incredible editor on a lot of my papers. Hal, really, I gotta tell you, really good.
I want to be.
Was
I want my cum laude.
right, I know. I couldn't have done it. And then when it all came full circle, I finished my NP. I'm working in an endocrine office in NYC, and I'm really truly struggling because my ideas were not the same as his. I am truly an out of the box thinker. A lot of doctors don't go on the side of peptides. They feel very uneasy about it. They don't even know how to talk about it. Um, and, just the processes, the way my brain processes things, I think differently. And a lot of them, I follow evidence-based medicine. People, I 100% follow evidence-based medicine, but I also know that 40% of the drugs that we write are off label. And you have to think about things really. I think I'm going to go back to on a cellular level.
Yep.
So I would always think a little differently than he did. And I think he wanted something from me that I wasn't able to give, which is a full-time, 100% commitment to his practice. And what happens is my dream was always my practice for 10 years, right? And I'm thinking, how am I ever going to get there? Well, life throws you a ton of diversions, right? And I end up going water skiing at the end of September and I tear my bicep tendon. So here's the scar. I don't know if you guys can see. I tear my bicep tendon not once, but twice. So I was in a cast. No human being except for me tears their bicep tendon in a cast. But Lee, why do you think I tore my bicep tendon in the cast? Tell them.
I think I heard this story maybe.
Because you can't be stopped.
Because
I
And
was
you
at the
went back
gym.
to the gym
Hal,
too
I went
soon.
to the gym. Was it the very day, Lee, or was it the next day?
You were in the gym the day of surgery in the afternoon.
Thank you. How recommending it, do you think it's recommended that somebody in a shoulder you're not supposed to do it? And I honestly think I'm not going to blame the surgeon on this one. I should, because any vibrate, you just,
Any sensible person.
so
well,
I end up tearing it again and I had to have 2 surgeries. So what happened, Hal, was I was missing a lot of important days at work and there wasn't anybody to fill in my shoes, right? And I was 25, 30 patients. It started to become chaotic for the office that I was working at. And I'm sorry this is just, it's so upsetting because the whole thing, he ended up letting me go after 15 years of being there. And on some level, even as a nutritionist, a diabetes educator, nurse practitioner, and he just said, "You're not committed. I need somebody that's with me and it's a ride or die with me." And instead of me coming back and saying, "You know what, I'm going to ride or die with you," I said, "You know what, Lee, we're doing it. We are doing it. We are
look
starting
out
our
in
own
the right.
practice."
Yeah.
Yep. And you know what, Hal? I'm finally getting, because this was very devastational for me to have this happen to me. Um, everyone said, "Colette, you're going to look back at this and you're going to say, you never would have done it." Lee, would I have left? I never would have left.
No,
And
no.
Yeah, well, this is something that happened to me not too long back either. I lost a gig and I wouldn't have left it if I had because I was attached to that
yes,
stability.
ah,
It's like a cage though. And I can
right.
work out and I can't make any money doing this much, but I love talking to people and I love drawing them out and hearing their stories, right? I like to hear my own stories sometimes too. But
Yeah.
Lee and I connected. You know how we connected? Do you know the backstory?
Oh God. I
Just
threw
started
Pat. Talk to me.
Yeah, he just started popping in on my, passing show. I go on live with my little phone here, pointed
Love it.
outwards, and I just film what I'm seeing and comment on it. I'm Washington, DC, and there's a lot
Oh, cool.
motion around me, right? And I'm thinking, "I'm gonna lay down some primary documentation at this point in history just before whatever's about to happen, happens." Right?
Yeah.
Historians of the future can look back on it. And maybe they will, maybe they won't, I don't know. But my father was a research historian, and when he died, I was left with a lot of materials that I want to, shepherd and, promulgate. So, I will be doing more of that as time allows, but I'm also kind of like it oh, I want to do this, I want to do that, and have conversations with people on the Harrowings podcast. And I call it Harrowings because life
Yeah,
itself is harrowing.
it is.
Imagine getting a diagnosis, folks, of diabetes when you were what, 11? Was that right?
Yeah, 11 and a fully blown at 14. So it
And,
started at
and
11
Colette,
and then,
tell him what your mother did when you the next day. That's all
oh, yeah.
that's
One
important.
other thing before I go to that,
Yeah.
and that is harrowing. My grandfather farmed with mules up until the 1950s or so when he finally got a tractor. And you harrow the field to prepare it for
Yeah.
creative work, planting seeds and seeing what sprouts up. So in these conversations, I'm seeing what'll sprout up. Go ahead. You were saying, Lee? And
Yeah. So the
Yeah.
interesting story is like, my, I mean, my mother's a very unique character and she's one that just,
Mhm.
she doesn't believe in, basically you've got to, life goes on with whatever happens, right? So I get diagnosed at 9 o'clock at night. I had to go to my father's endocrinologist. So my father was type 1, so very much a hereditary genetic component to the disease, which is honestly why I never had children. I would never. It's a very difficult disease, and I just can't imagine having a little one with type 1. It's the patient, the parent is never not worrying, So I go to my father's endocrinologist 9 o'clock at night. They could not draw blood from me because the glycosylation of the red blood cell, you guys, your blood is so thick and it's like sticky glue. He's like, and my sugars rank over, registering high. And he's like, "You have to start insulin tonight." So I'm like, "What?" And I'm thinking, this, I can't even believe this happening. So I'm in the car. I'm like, "Mom, I got to stay home from school." She's like, "What are we going to do? You are going to school tomorrow and you are going to live your life. We're not going to sit here and stare at each other and say, you got type 1 diabetes." I'm like going, "Oh my God, I don't even get a day off of school." So I literally went to school that next day as a newly diagnosed type 1 diabetes and had to realize I got to keep living. Hal, this is it. Diabetes is it. If I stop, then diabetes is going to, ravish me. I got to keep going. And I learned to fight. I learned to fight really, really hard instead of letting it fight. I didn't want to let diabetes win. I wasn't going to let diabetes win.
And now you're actually helping other people who had the same thing. My father had type 2, and he
Okay.
died at the age of 91, and those blood
Good for
monitors you talked
him.
about really helped.
Oh,
Although his blood sugar was all over the map in the last years, it was like watching somebody slowly being crucified. My speaking of things that, like, you were talking about, like, you're not gonna sit there and stare at each other because you've got the type 1. My wife had a stroke at the age of 42 and her brainstem that paralyzed her
oh,
flexible
wow.
body, and she always says, "Nobody said I could just stay on the couch and eat bonbons."
Good
So,
for her.
she's got an ankle foot orthotic on the left leg. She hasn't been able to use the left arm really since then. But,
But she has to keep living, though. Hal, she's got to keep living. She's got to keep living. You know what I mean?
Exactly, and she's gone on living. She's now 58, I'm, 63, and we're still in a three-legged race through life, I like to say.
So as I live life in the real, I'm wearing a Dexcom and my blood sugar is reading 148. So when that happens, you guys, I use a Freza. I might as well use this
What?
as an education moment. This is inhaled insulin. Hal, you probably don't know about this. You actually can take pre-measured doses of insulin and you close it, and this is your insulin. So if your doctor is not telling you about this, and I'm not doing this as a plug, I'm just saying I believe doctors should give patients choice. And because they were not educated, because this only came out 10 years ago, they don't let you know. And you don't actually have to inject your insulin, Hal. You can inhale it. So I do a lot of inhaled insulin. I'm probably one of the biggest proponents. Obviously, I'm on it. But if you are listening and you do have type 1 diabetes or you have type 2 diabetes, it doesn't matter who you are. And you have to still inject insulin. Your doctor is not telling you about all of the different options. This is what makes me so upset, Hal. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing, because you deserve to know everything that's out there to treat a certain condition that you might be troubling you. So I've gotten so upset with doctors that withhold information. Who are they protecting? I mean, they're protecting themselves because they don't want to do the prior authorization. That's who they're protecting. And
Hey,
I mean, I hate to say that. And
hey,
it's just frustrating. So when you come to me, I'm very innovative. I learn a lot. I spend every single day studying. I watch every single, like, I'm just every time I work out is not just a workout. It is a moment to learn. And I'm always listening to a podcast, a new um
Right.
influencer or somebody that's a guru in a certain subject so that I can then become at least educated. So when patients come to me, I'm going to be able to answer these questions because they're listening, they're watching, and I got to have an answer to what's going on because, it's amazing the amount of information. It's information overload every day for everybody.
Yeah, I learned a lot, and I need to be your own advocate. One of the things I like to advocate, for instance, is if, you have a really bad headache and you've been a woman on birth control and there's
Oh
no
my
reason
gosh,
to
say
expect
it.
meningitis, do not allow them to do a spinal tap because that was why my wife couldn't have the clot-busting drugs that might have spared her the effects of the stroke.
Yes.
No, but they did a spinal tap, and that could have caused a waist down paralysis from the site of the spinal tap down, so they couldn't use the clot-busting drugs that were involved.
Oh my gosh.
So
You
that's
gotta
kinda
say it louder. Whenever if you're somebody that suffers from unusually odd headaches, you know what I mean? You
yes.
really you have to get that checked out. You can't just dismiss it as, "Oh, maybe it's no, something could be going on. It could be a prolactinoma." Exactly what you're saying. It could be a TIA. You could be having a brain it's very
She
scary.
was yeah, we were in the hospital. She had gone because she had had a migraine the night before and gone to bed taking her migraine medication, and then the headache set in, and she woke me up at, like, 1 a.m. We took her to the Holy Cross Hospital.
Oh
They did a
my gosh.
CT scan of the head, and they didn't see it. It was a tiny little clot off a perforated artery off the main vertebral, cutting off supply to the brain stem about yay big around and about yay deep.
Wow.
Enough to have, shut down
Mhm.
whole transmissions down the left side of the body. So exciting times. She'd never been hospitalized before, ever.
It's isn't those types of things are so because where's the warning? And what
It
could you
was
know what I mean?
and she had not been on birth control for a little while, so we really couldn't go to the birth control, but the one she had been on was known to have a side effect of, clots.
Right. So I have my feelings on I do hormone replacement,
Yep,
and it's a nice segue because I
and
am
my
not
wife
a
is
big
dealing with menopausal symptoms now at her age, It's
so
there's a lot of suffering involved.
what's interesting about this whole thing is I want to explain the difference between birth control and like bioidentical estradiol and progesterone.
Yep,
Very, very different.
yep.
I am not a fan of birth control, and my patients know that. I'm either doing a copper IUD or there's two new birth controls that contain estradiol valerate, which is Natavia, and Nextstellis contains estratrol, which is a fetal estrogen. I do not prescribe any of the others. They do increase your clot risk. They're oral, and even if they're the Nexplanon, all of them have ethinyl estradiol, which is fake synthetic estrogen. It is an
Mm,
endocrine disruptor. Same with
like
progestin.
plastic, yeah.
Yes, exactly. I am not a fan, and I understand why people do it for birth control. I get that, but there comes a risk with them. Whereas I want to just differentiate when you go on estradiol and you go on progesterone, these are bioidentical and they're incredible for women. They remove the black box warning stating again that these do not, I repeat, do not cause breast cancer. That is not what's happening here. They're actually protective. And that if your wife had suffered from clots, they often say, yup, you can never do it. That is not true either. You just can't do oral. You could do the patches, which are transdermal. They don't go through first pass of the liver. They do not change your clotting factors whatsoever. I have a woman that has factor 5. I have someone that has protein S, which are clotting disorders that are they're using patches and they're thriving. So I don't know I'm not trying to, if they ever need to speak to me, I'm here because I'm a big believer that you don't need to suffer. And fear has angled people into steering away from hormone replacement because they're like, oh my God. And I understand she comes from a place of fear where she'd be worried. She took birth control. Could that have been a factor? We don't know. But I will promise you this, if you do transdermal, either a gel or a patch, it does not go through first pass. I would never prescribe her an oral estradiol, even though it's limited in terms of how well we know that, that could increase clotting factors, but there is some risk there. But a progesterone is natural. And as long as she has a uterus and she hasn't had a hysterectomy, then she would need progesterone. But a lot of women love it because it's anti-anxiolytic. They actually calms them down when they start feeling anxious as you get older and just life because your brain, when your FSH and your LH, this is the hormones that are trying to push out another egg. Unfortunately, when your ovaries are no longer making eggs, that's just how it works. Then the FSH rises higher and higher. You guys, that's follicle stimulating hormone.
Got it.
That's what I test in all my women because I try to bring that down to as close as I can to pre-menopausal levels, which you guys, when you were young, it was between 4 and 5. As you get older, it rises higher and higher. And some women, I see it over 90, 100. So I beg the question, if FSH in your brain is going higher and higher and you don't do anything about it, which means you are not taking estradiol, then you have to wonder if that's an initiator of dementia. And I truly believe it. The data is steering toward that. You want to bring down that FSH. And I truly believe, and I see it. I use the estradiol patch to bring down your FSH by increasing your estradiol so your brain doesn't have to work so hard.
Very interesting. I was one time a friend of mine was in Hopkins, psychologist working on the effects of estrogen on dementia in women. Her name was Pauline Mackey. I think she's out in Chicago, last I heard, but it's been a long time. Fascinating. There's the hot flashes my wife goes through are the main things that she's got to deal with, and
There's
yeah,
a dysregulation in the temperature control. When
right,
estrogen drops, there's a dysregulation to the temperature control in your brain. And I mean, I really would not dismiss hormone replacement for her. It's not too late. They say you have a 10-year window from when your last menstrual period was to when you decide to do hormone. I don't even believe that. I have a woman, 65 that started on it.
really.
As long as you look at their cardiovascular risk, which I understand she had suffered from a stroke, but that
What?
we have right. One, we have to understand we would not give her oral. We could absolutely give her a transdermal patch. And estradiol is so incredibly protective for your heart. That's the reason why women meet that of men for heart disease after menopause because they lose estradiol. And I'm going to say this and make this very clear. If you are a woman postmenopausal, your male counterparts have more estrogen than you do. I don't think that feels good. It's true, Hal, because you make testosterone. And
Yeah.
so your testosterone converts into estradiol, which is protective to your heart. So women that are in menopause are at a very grave risk for heart disease. And I'm scared for them. I'm scared for them. I'm scared for their brains. I'm scared for their bones, especially their bones. Frailty's real.
Yeah.
And
Her
I am
maternal grandmother died of a heart attack at 60 something.
yeah, this is real.
Mother went to 90, almost 92, 2 weeks shy, but still, it's
Yeah,
scary. And
I
I
am
actually
very,
have events with her where she'll be will be situational. She'll have these moments when she starts to black out,
yeah.
and, it's scary because you can't actually raise her. Her eyes are open, but it looks like she's dying.
Oh God.
Call the
I
ambulance.
mean, yeah.
And
I
I get
mean,
the paramedics out there, and she's cleared up by then, and it's like, well, better safe than sorry. No.
Well, I mean, just talking to you, I really, when I hear about women in their 50s and those that are not doing hormone replacement, I always want to beg the question, well, why? And I want to figure out where their fears are. And then absolutely some of them are legitimate. And then I try to dismiss those fears because we're removing them. The FDA are removing them. I mean,
Yeah.
the FDA has had, you know, for the FDA to do something, it's like, that's moving mountains where they actually took a black box warning off of all estradiol products. And I was just so happy about that because it really is, it's beautiful for what I do for a living because then I don't have to fight the fact when I write them the patch, they go home. Oh my gosh, this is going to kill me. Do you know what I mean? That's what the FDA was doing because it says on there, oh my God, I'm going to have this and this, so they removed all that nonsense with the black box warning. But, there's
Mm.
still after the Women's 2002 Health Initiative, which was quite possibly was one of the biggest uh, studies that were done to reflect whether or not estradiol was good or bad. They published the results before the results were even completed, and they scared the bejesus out of everybody, and everybody went off hormone replacement. And that's been like that for 20 years until finally they revisited the data, and we now know otherwise. Estradiol is breast protective. I want you guys to think about something. All these endocrine disruptors that we talked about, you have a beta and alpha receptor on the breast. When the breast has a lack of something filling that beta receptor, these are your receptors. Now you have no more estradiol. Think about what I'm saying. Something is going to fill that void. Do you want it to be an endocrine disruptor? Some fake estrogen that's out there in the world? That's what's happening. You want to fill that void with real estradiol to be protective to the breast. Please hear what I'm saying. Otherwise, these endocrine disruptors, most breast cancers we find are happening over 65 when there was no estrogen anyway. And it's the endocrine disruptors that are going to get you. So you want that beta receptor to be filled with estradiol, not to be out there rogue, because something will get in there. So I am truly a believer in that. And a PhD says it way better than I do. But when you listen to her, you're like, get me on this stuff, because you're really, 1 in 8 women can get breast cancer, and it's definitely not the estradiol. That's going to be protective, but something else is going to get in there. Most of
Yeah.
the times it's environmental hazards. You know what I mean? How we live. Yep.
And this is kind of related to prostate cancer as well, a similar type of tissue, correct?
It is. It's very interesting where we talk about, it's
So it's
interesting
kind
how
of
we,
going around.
No, Hal, don't get her talking about testosterone.
oh, I know. That's another one.
I thought
I
we'd bring
know.
it over here, yeah. Bring it over to
Well,
this.
right.
Is that
Because
Are you
what's
sure?
gonna happen?
there was
Well,
a time
apparently.
when listen, Hal, there was a time they thought testosterone caused prostate cancer,
Right.
which again is not true. That has
I know
been
my
disproved.
cousin was up on estrogen because they thought that was prophylactic for the cancer. He's still around
Yes.
as far as I know. Actually, my father had, prostate cancer, but took radiation for that, and
Okay.
that
Hey,
just killed his ability to enjoy food apparently, among other things.
That'll do it.
Um,
Right.
you know, it's amazing what these things do. I mean, he later had lung cancer that was treated successfully with
Oh,
radiation,
good.
but gave
Wow.
him
Yeah.
pneumonia, so he was on oxygen for his last 18 months.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But he got 18 more months of
I
pretty
mean,
much
but
continual.
how when you speak about men, I want to, speaking to my
One of
men
the
out
things
there.
that helps with
wh-
that, folks,
Yeah.
is I would tell my father, "Bury your pain with pleasure, then you'll have lots of pleasure." And he had a sense of humor.
I love that. That's good. I like bury your pain with fun. I like that.
Yeah.
On a note with men that also too can go through andropause, I want you guys to understand low testosterone is a risk factor for your heart, for your bones, for your brain. Now, why is that?
Oh,
Because when your testosterone's too low, below 260, the conversion into estradiol, because estradiol protects your heart,
mm,
protects your bones. So if you have
yeah,
low testosterone is the precursor to estradiol. It goes back to how beautiful estradiol is. But if you have low testosterone guys out there, it is not good. It again is your musculoskeletal system down spiraling. Muscle is like that a major organ system that's so important for longevity and frailty. So musculoskeletal, your frailty with your bones, your brain as well, and not to mention your overall heart condition, because without estradiol, to your point, like I know guys that are taking estradiol, by the way, it's a little off label, but because estradiol is so incredibly cardioprotective. So I mean, it's fascinating where we are in the hormonal space,
yeah,
where it's
yeah,
worth it for everybody listening, and Lee is ready to schedule them an appointment. But to have, believe me, Lee spends his days taking intakes, but to
yeah,
really get your hormones checked. What are you waiting for? Why not? You have nothing to lose, everything to gain. And we even have special places. Lee, you can talk about Quest. We can talk about, we have, if your crazy insurance doesn't want to cover these labs and they want to charge you an arm and a leg, because Lee and I fight with the lab cores and the quests and everything. They now have, Lee, how much was your labs? Lee did labs at Quest. How much was that to do a pretty
It
decent panel?
was like 300 and something, like below 350
Right.
for
So
a pretty comprehensive panel at Quest. You just pay it in advance. Yeah, but I see you trying to say something, Hal. Say it
Well, we
now.
have this one question, I don't wanna neglect it.
Yeah.
Strange question, Ann J. Sharp says, "But what advice or guidance for transgender women? Is their physiology, despite hormone therapy, to be conserved male? Question mark, or not
yes,
be disrespectful but logical about identity versus biology?" And that can go for the other way around as well.
I absolutely love this question, and I have thought about this, and I have researched with colleagues. If you are a transgender female to male, if they're female to male, they would likely still be on testosterone, because the levels of testosterone are more than what, say, I would take. So a woman that is a woman that wants to stay a woman but wants to replace testosterone is usually doing 10 milligrams a week. Okay. If you are transgender, you're sometimes going up as high as 75, 100 milligrams, right? That will convert to estradiol, which will then be protective to similar to that of a male's biology. So they actually, when it comes to hormone replacement, they're getting it because they're doing so much testosterone to maintain their gender identity, right? So that extra testosterone is going to convert into estradiol, act as a protection against some of the problems with lack of estradiol. So it's interesting because we are really in the infancy of studying what to do in these cases, because is that estradiol high enough for them to protect their heart, their bones, their brain by just giving extra testosterone? We know that testosterone is relatively benign. It is so safe, even for women that want to take it just to replace their lack of testosterone as a male, as a born female. But for a transgender male to female, if the testosterone that they're taking is high enough, they can get their estradiol up to a level that's at least functional in the body. So I want, again, for my transgender male, female to male, like Lee, I don't know if Lee, if you want to talk about your
Yeah,
labs. It might be
yeah,
important to talk about your labs, because Lee's labs were interesting and put me at ease, because I said there, Lee, I'm very concerned about your estradiol. I was even gonna, Lee will tell. I mean, I was going
she
nuts.
was trying to give me estrogen and progesterone, Hal. It was not a good thing.
Lee was losing his mind. And I said, Lee, we got to
Like,
do your labs, because I have to make sure that you have some protection with, mind you, menopausal women have less than 5 picograms per milligram of estradiol. Lee,
wow.
because Lee's testosterone was so high, he has estradiol, higher than that of a menopausal woman. So it was very interesting. We, as my male to females, we need to look at your levels. I need to see where your estradiol is falling. I want to see where your testosterone is, so that I know there's enough conversion. And I guess if they were, having such a low estradiol, similar that to my men that have low estradiol, I will give them estradiol. It's a true story, you guys. Some men take estradiol because their conversion is so low. They do more DHT conversion, that they take testosterone for cardio protection. So Lee, talk about your labs, because Lee's labs were fascinating.
We'll do that, and we'll get to NJ Sharp's second question. Go ahead.
Yeah, get to her question first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We may never have another chance.
This
Yeah, get to
one,
her question. Yeah. So
Ann
if it
says
was, if
males
it's,
are losing testosterone as time passes. Is this a speculated
yep.
condition caused by plastics? So who is going to straighten that issue out? How do we minimize testosterone loss? When do we admit plastics are causing testosterone loss
Yeah.
and find a solution? That's
Oh,
a
I
very
agree.
good
I
one.
agree with you. A very good question, and thank you for asking, because these endocrine disruptors, not just the plastics, you guys, I could list you many more that are happening in the environment right now that are actually leading to what we're finding is generational changes in male testosterone levels. You guys, we have seen drops in the testosterone levels of our now young youth that's running around right now. Everyone's testosterone levels are not what they were back in the 80s and the 70s. So what he's saying is absolutely true. So we're seeing this thing called andropause. And this is about our environment going down the drain left and right as we speak. And that is a very big question, is how do we begin to acknowledge that is having an impact on fertility? It's impossible for people to get pregnant anymore. I mean, men's sperm counts are down, their testosterone counts are down. I mean, what are we doing here? You know what I mean? And then women, PCOS is crazy, polycystic ovarian disease. Their ovaries are not functioning the way they should. So it's becoming like a fertility issue. You guys, we're in a major crisis here when it comes to fertility. No one's having babies, and we're using more IVF, more IUIs. I mean, it's crazy. So what he's saying is absolutely true. And to that extent, it still needs to be treated. So no one deserves to. I always say this when people are like, "Well, I'm on cortisone. This is why my blood sugar is high, Colette. So just deal with it." No, I'm going to give you something to fix that. I'm going to give you more insulin, or I'm going to do something, because while you're on this cortisone, your levels high. While we're exposed to this insanity around us, I mean, I'm drinking out of plastic. I shouldn't be drinking out of plastic, and I am, because it was convenient. And this is the way we live in a world of convenience.
Well,
And
that's
unfortunately,
yeah. I mean, the convenience, and when I'm walking down the street, I'm saying it, and I just caught myself looking in my Facebook memories and seeing I was saying it 9, 10 years ago.
yeah.
Every cent spent is a vote for the kind of world we are co-creating. We are doing it to ourselves, folks.
Yeah.
And I feel like I want to stop buying things in plastic. and yet I do it anyway. I go to my
I
Trader
do it
Joe's.
anyway. What am I doing?
Why are we
This should be out of glass. It
why
should
are we
be.
pressuring them to
I know.
use other substances for the packaging? I don't know. Anyway, Lee, you labs, I think, are our next topic too. We don't wanna miss that.
Yeah, but thank you for that question. But at the same time with him, let's treat it. We
Yeah,
because we live in a shitty environment, we still that testosterone's safe, you guys. It's bioidentical. You can do it. If you have a good provider, we give you physiologic dosing, not super physiologic. You know what I mean? So you can deserve and feel your best.
right, right. I think I gotta go back and have my labs. I use one medical group now, which is owned by Amazon, for God's sakes, at this point.
I mean, listen to what's
When
going
I've not
on.
owned
I know we can't get away with this. We're all victims of the crisis that's happening in the world. How we're eating, how we're living, how we're behaving, how we feed into Amazon. I mean, we're just destroying the little guys. I mean, we are doing it. Like, I know.
and Lee, let me give you the mic.
I
Yes,
don't know.
yeah.
So, Lee,
The world is now waiting, and they're going to be really let down.
no, they're not. You're a fascinating subject, Lee, with your labs.
Well, I am okay. Well, how do I start? Well, as you know from our previous show, Hal, that I am transgender.
Yeah,
So, as a transgender male, I stopped taking testosterone. I don't know what's this 5, 6 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
So anyway, and at the time that I did the labs, Colette was trying to push progesterone on me to make me sleep because I can't
Yes.
sleep. And she said, if you take progesterone, that'll help sleep. But I took it once and it didn't help me sleep. And then I was like, I'm not taking that. I don't know what it's going to do to me. I'm not turning back into a woman again. You know what I mean? So, and I said, how can you possibly give me this without knowing where I'm at? You could give me this, and all of a sudden I have skyrocketed version. So I decided to just get because of me, I wanted to prove her that I was perfect. You know what I mean? So I decided to get my labs done just to get it off my back by hormone levels. So I got them done, and it was kind of crazy because I ended up with a testosterone level of I think it was 1,050.
Can you
So
believe
I
that,
just
Hal? 1,050. Not even a lot of my guys have that.
And
yeah.
I'm seeing guys with labs coming back at 200, 300, 400, 500, maybe 600, and yes, there are higher ones, but they're the ones that are already on testosterone. So I was like, it just made me think, it's like, how in God's name is my testosterone? It was just short of being high. One more point and it would have been considered on the high side. The range was high. And I'm like, it makes you wonder the whole transgender thing.
That's right.
And is it your biology? Because if I'm walking around with more testosterone than I don't know the percentage. I would like to say, but I mean, I at least 50% of the guys, I would say, from what I've
Yeah.
seen, then you got to wonder how that affects the brain.
Right, or how much the brain
Oh,
is affecting
uh,
that, your mindset.
100%.
Yeah.
Lee's mind has always thought more like a male. Lee told me that from when I met Lee, the very first time I met Lee. Lee said, I don't think, and believe me, talking to Lee does not think like a woman. Never has. I don't, Lee, I tried to put makeup on Lee
Oh,
one time, Hal. Hal, you won't not believe this. I was like, Lee, I want to put some, because I did makeup. Lee was like, remember that, Lee? When I did that, you wanted to kill me. Lee absolutely wanted to kill me. I mean,
Yeah,
he doesn't have
I
any,
look like a
um,
show poodle, Hal. I look like a show poodle.
I don't think it worked too good, Lee. I don't think it
tell you
worked too
what,
good.
you
It
didn't
wasn't
give
a
off
good.
any vibes I would never know. They've been born, Karen, right?
Yeah,
In Scotland. And
yeah.
Scotland, I believe, but Karen? Really?
I know, really, Hal.
I'm
I
a
mean,
Karen. I'm a Karen.
Lee, I don't. I mean, it is very fascinating having the whole conversation because you know there truly was a biological difference with Lee in terms of his testosterone levels. You can even see it now, and I do think it programmed him to never really think that like a not to think like a woman. You know what I mean? He never felt comfortable in a female body, and it absolutely makes sense because his brain was always thinking like a male with the testosterone level that high.
Yeah, it's a very interesting how the brain influences our hormonal balances, the
Uh,
peptides that are running in our systems. And by the way, we haven't even touched the mitochondria yet.
Oh, I know. That's your cellular aging right there, that mitochondria. You guys, this is where it all starts. How do we handle autophagy, senescent cells? How do we handle the apoptosis? This is how the cell starts to regenerate or, in otherwise, kind of rebuild itself or die. And mitochondria are the powerhouses of your cell. And a lot of it, in terms of cellular medicine, starts with those peptides. Some of the most popular you're going to hear about is NAD plus. I mean, I don't know if everybody talks about
Mhm.
NAD plus.
Yep.
Nicotinamide adenosine dinucleotide. I just love saying it, but that is a fun. That's basically the start of it all. You know what I mean? Where you have your NAD and NADH. These are your mitochondria powerhouses that really get your energy going. You know what I mean? And this is where it kind of is I'd say that's like a nice start of a peptide. Then you can get into like the MOTS-C, the SS31. These are all mitochondria peptides, and they're really, I mean, in essence, they're what's going to help you to become, I guess superhuman in a sense, right? Because that is really where aging begins
Right.
and ends.
Still
It
feel it.
begins and ends there with the mitochondria, So I mean, I think it's, when you think about cellular medicine, you're looking at all the different pathways. You're looking at mitochondria being probably number one. You think, oh, not, well, metabolically, I think we have to talk about the GLP-1s, like your retatrutides, your tirzepatides, and your semaglutides, because that's your metabolic pathway. Then you've got your mitochondria. You got how your body deals with autophagy and what we call apoptosis, the death of a cell, senescent cell. How do you get rid of zombie cells? That is your mitochondria. Those are your MOTS-C, your SS31, your NAD, sometimes KPV can throw in there. Then you have your GHRHs and your GHRPs, growth hormone releasing hormone and growth hormone releasing peptide. Those are, you guys, your tesamorelin, your sermorelin, your impamorelin, your CJC. These are growth hormone secretagogues. And what are really great is that when you take exogenous growth hormone, you just shut everything down. When you take a peptide, it turns the signal on in your brain. So it's telling it what to do. It's it's really interesting. And as we get older, we know that growth hormone starts to decline. So you're just waking that up again. These are better in people that are older, actually. A lot of young people take them, but they're better in people that are older. So then you have your mitochondria, your metabolism, then you have your GHRHs. Then you have, when you talk about your sexual health, you've got kisspeptin, your oxytocin, your gonadotropin releasing hormone, your gonadorelin. So you have all your PT141, you guys. That's Vyleesi, which is a sexual energy peptide. So
Hmm.
we have all, there's peptides are just ever, it's such an epitalin. Epitalin is a really big one now too, with the telomeres of the DNA. The
That's
last strain, yes, the last strain of the DNA that kind of gets all ratty and gross. And they fix the telomeres at the end of the DNA, and that's epitalin. So epitalin gets a lot. Everybody should do a round of epitalin. You know what I mean? And it's an easy peptide to do. It's kind of a little pricey, but you just do about 20 days, and then you do that about 3 times a year, and that really resets your DNA. You know what I mean? It keeps those telomeres healthy. So I mean, God, and then the gut health, you guys. I have a whole gut protocol that I've done on patients using interesting peptides like KPV, LL31, BPC 157, lorazepatide. These are interesting things that your doctor's not going to tell you about. Lorazepatide was used years ago, and this is at some of these compounding pharmacies. It tightens up the junctions in your gut where you have leaky gut. You just always feel bloated, and I've used this on a patient, and the whole protocol. It's kind of extreme, but you get through it. You do it for 30 days, and she is like, "Wow, Colette, this has truly been a miracle." Always was bloated. Always felt like just ew after every time she ate, and now she's just feeling great. So
mm,
these are all peptides, Hal. All peptides resetting your microbiome. Because at the end of the day, everybody listening, when we go through their different pathways with metabolism, with your metabolic health, your mitochondrial health, your GHRH, your sexual health, then it really comes down to your gut microbiome, doesn't it? Because that's where
yep.
all your immune system rests. I mean, you guys, your gut microbiome is everything. And we are destroying it, okay, with again, all these endocrine disruptors that we've got out there. But there are things that we can do cellularly with cellular medicine that if you've never tried and you're sitting there using omeprazole over and over again and H2 blockers and you're just frustrated and you just can't ever feel right, doing a whole, I have a whole protocol that I use for what I call this a gut reset. It's interesting. It really is. And it's definitely something you're not seeing in what I would otherwise call your regular PCP when you walk in there, This is definitely functional, interventional cellular medicine at its best for your gut health.
All right. Yeah, there's a lot there. There was
Woo, I know.
I picked up on
Whoa.
from Lee before about Wolverine blend, and one of those, is one of those was a BPC.
BBC
EPC,
157.
Hey, I feel
that is,
good about my memory.
yeah, that was good.
Yeah, you
That's
did good.
of all the ones I talked about, your healing peptides, probably the most impactful are going to be, and the most well known are BPC 157, TB 500, GHKCU. GHKCU, I can't even believe I didn't mention it. All my girls that listen to me know me. All want to be on GHKCU. Lee, I just dropped my bottle. You got to make sure you buy me another one. So I have a bottle of GHKCU, and it grows your hair. It helps your skin, your nails. It's really, really, really a great peptide that improves collagen, fibrinogen, elastin, angiogenesis, meaning brings more blood flow to the areas. It's incredible.
Hmm.
And it complements that of your BPC and your TB 500. And your BPC, again, goes to where inflammation is. So, Hal, you hurt your knee. The body knows where the inflammation is. BPC knows. You inject BPC, it goes to where the inflammation is. It builds more blood vessels to give the blood's like your money for your body. It builds more blood vessels around that injury to heal, to use your own body to heal. You guys, the truth of the matter is, I think our own body has the ability to heal itself. And we just have to figure out how to untap how to do it. That's the
Yeah,
key.
sort of jack it in there so it works for us. And the longevity, is what a lot of people are looking for as well. I'm not sure
Yep.
why entirely because I sometimes I look at the world outside and I'm like, "Do I really want to continue to be incarnate?"
Yeah, that's a whole nother story, right? I know that's,
Yeah, but
where's the
a
world
lot
going to
of
be in
us
100
do
years?
wanna extend our lifespans, and they're saying that, "Hey, if you live to 70, you might live to 1,000."
It's
I don't know.
interesting. There
I
are
don't
people that are hacking the world, the daylights out of themselves, where they are convinced that they can live, well over, 150, whatever. I mean, I'm hearing some pretty wild numbers,
know.
and we'll see.
Strikes me, right? Being a historian's son, I look back at something that was done, like, yesterday was Simone de Beauvoir's, birthday, I think, if I pronounce her name right, I'm terrible at French. 1908. Is there any survivor from 1908? I don't think so.
No,
Everybody's gone. And I think of
yeah.
myself at 63, when I arrived here, there were about 3,000,000,000 plus people, and
Outlook.
most of those have left. So most of the people who are here now, the 8.25 billion, are younger than me.
Yeah.
And that's kind of fascinating to me too, and I'm like, "Well, I'm just gonna try to stay alive as long as possible and just keep stepping over the bodies,"
Yes. Keep stepping over the bodies.
terms. Because, but, what we've done to our environment, I'm kinda glad I don't have children of my own, and
Me
maybe that
too.
might have been due to the fact that, there's a lot of reduction. My wife and I started trying to have children when we got married, and autoimmune hepatitis came along and struck down her ability to have kids. She got put on azathioprine,
Oh,
which
wow.
is basically, you know, pregnant women should not touch that.
No, that was,
So
oh no.
So
Yeah.
anyway, that was kind of an interesting twist. She liked to say she was taking self-loathing to the cellular level.
Yes.
And autoimmune
Yeah.
diseases are rife. I mean, a friend of mine I was talking to recently, the intrepid editor press is where you find him on Substack as a version of lupus that he's living with. And, people, I was listening to, well, our mutual friend Patty Smith, right? Talking about in Bread of Angels, befriending a young woman who died of uremia as a result of lupus in her most recent memoir. That's another connection Lee and I had is that we were both
Yes.
friends of Patty Smith, and you're friends with Jesse, right? So,
Yes.
Mhm.
yeah. Anyway, small world wise, do you know those folks too?
Yes, yes, I've gone to the concerts, I've met Jessie. I haven't met Patty yet, but she's
Yeah.
she's unbelievable. Talk about somebody that, like,
79.
how does she do there's somebody that is like,
Yeah.
yeah, I wanna be her when I grow up. I wanna keep living, man. I wanna
Right.
keep living. She's
Exactly.
on
Keep
tour,
working.
she's just I don't never wanna stop working. Why do you want what are you gonna do when you stop working? What are you doing? You know what I mean?
This is the work.
This
And
is the word. Yep.
building our relationships with each other, one conversation at a time.
I love it. So you've been
sharing our
amazing.
knowledge, and you've
Yep.
been so generous with me. I
Oh
really
my God. Well, thank you so much for today. I mean, we'll have to do it again. You know what I mean? Maybe we'll fine tune our thought processes on certain peptides alone, or maybe if people have questions, we can really just, focus in on certain things they might have, or hormones even alone. They're fascinating
you can
topics. So,
imagine doing a show. Yeah,
hmm
a regular. And,
right. We could.
we can see if we can spin you up some extra patients out there too, but you may be swamped.
That's okay. Lee can handle it. Lee can handle it, right, Lee?
Can you, Lee? Can you? I
Yeah,
don't wanna
right.
I wanna set you up. Oh, by the way, we do have a third question here from
Okay.
MJ Sharp. I wanna get that in before we go. It seemed the COVID-19 vaccine was adversely affecting mitochondria in young people, causing them to become dangerously ill. Reports of young people dying from COVID-19 vaccinations, not COVID. Young folks, pregnant women, certain races, and elderly should have been protected. I guess that's not a question, but a statement. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Listen, we are learning more and more about, not only that, just the consequences of, I mean, COVID is an interesting disease in that we did find that it did affect the cardiovascular system. Um, Very much so. That's why we saw an increase in clots and in different types of
You
cardiovascular
had your
issues for
experience, didn't you, Hal, with it?
I don't
Didn't
know,
you have an experience
but
with it?
I had COVID, I believe, from like November 19. I went to a Dead and Company show in Hampton Coliseum, and then I suddenly had elevated D dimer and a
Oh no. Yeah.
capacities in my lung. My doctor didn't I had an old school doctor here in DC, very good, and he retired actually during the COVID pandemic lockdown. But, he was looking for clots, in my legs or wherever, and, we did all kinds of tests and couldn't really trace it down. So I think
Wow.
I
I
had
mean,
a case of COVID, didn't know it, and then I had it again later, but I got the vaccinations, right? But then I was having this respiratory gunk around
yeah.
September 2023, and I founded a little group called Friends of Hal Gill because I felt like I wanted to bring my friends in closer because I was feeling sick. Thought I was gonna die, because I had pneumonia before that almost killed me. But they were looking for what the problem was, and they found that I had unbeknownst to me, suddenly I have about 4 centimeter, ascending aortic aneurysm.
Oh,
So,
wow.
it's in my aneurysm that I didn't ever have before that I know of, but I don't
Right.
think it's related to the COVID. I asked the doctors, they always like, "Brush
Right.
it."
Right.
There's nothing in it for them to try to connect the dots.
Right. No, no. I mean, we're learning so much more about just the consequences of COVID and where you are, your state of health when you do get COVID. Um, and then it's interesting how we did see an uptick in type 1 diabetes. And I will explain that more so than I can explain to you exactly where, because there's so much still unknown and we're learning more and more about the vaccine itself. But they did find that because you need a trigger in many autoimmune diseases. So for me, I was getting sick with strep throat over and over again. And my mother's like, what is going? It's a virus. Remember, strep throat. I was a virus. And that as my body was trying to fight off the virus, that was my trigger to type 1 diabetes. Now, strep throat does not cause causation and correlation, did not, but that was the trigger. So what happens is when people have gotten COVID, this happened, I was seeing this all the time, 2021, they had the antibodies. There's 4 antibodies that people think about with type 1. It's GAD antibodies, zinc transporter 8, IA2s and IAAs, insulin autoantibodies and insulin antibodies. So these, something needs to trigger them. And COVID increased the incidence of type 1 diabetes because it was the trigger that started that immune system. And immune systems, like you said earlier, are fascinating. Like, what exactly and how does it all of a sudden you've got MS? You know what I mean? And something triggers it, something your body tries to fight something off. And that was what we saw with COVID. So, I mean, we're still learning more and more about what is going on with COVID and the vaccine and incidences of I'm just going to throw it out there with the type 1 diabetes increasing. So,
Well, the
It's
main
funny
one
with
that she's asking about, and Jay Sharp is asking about here, is the adversely affecting mitochondria in young people. Do you know if that hit your radar at all?
I mean, that's hard to say because I would have to really look at that. I mean, how it's affecting the cell, you know what I mean? Because
Yep.
the cell and then DNA, you guys, I know it can get confusing because the messenger RNA and the DNA is not the same in essence, because that was brought. Somebody else had asked a similar question. So it would happen in an offshoot. It wouldn't be an actually direct hit. Not saying that wouldn't have some alterations on how your body and the energy powerhouse of the cell is reacted to the vaccine. Very interesting. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's very
And
interesting that people are reacting generally to the virus too anymore, and I don't know how much is being swept under the rug of how
yeah.
of people getting the flu and dying of something. But a friend of mine was patient number 5 at, Mount Sinai. Michelle Ezrick, she's a director and,
Okay.
based in New York City, and, she was just terrified she was gonna die, and, she luckily did not, but she has now what is called long COVID,
Yeah. The long. Yeah.
and I don't really know a lot about it either at that point. Of course, I'm no doctor. I'm
I
just
mean,
a
there are some peptides for long COVID, like thymosin alpha 1. We do a
right?
lot of that. That's an immune peptide. Thymosin alpha 1 for, her listing. Again, the BPC, the TB5. I mean, if I had long COVID, I would definitely employ some cellular medicine. Why not? I mean, you know what I mean?
Right?
It just makes
Maybe
sense.
we'll talk
Because
about
you've got to build some kind of strength against what's going on, why your body is still have these lingering effects of the virus, So,
yep, clean New York.
LL31 is another one.
That'll help.
Yeah, for
Gotta get
sure.
her on one of these days soon. I've had her, manager on recently, guy named Keith Gard, and he's on the other coast over where you are, LA,
Okay.
up the way, I think, in Washington. That was a lot of fun. He used to manage Aerosmith, and one of the
Oh
things
my
I also
god,
like
that's
about
it. I wanna hear that podcast. Oh my
yeah,
god.
well, look it up, Keith Gard Harrowings podcast dash Keith Gard, and I'm gonna title this one appropriately if I haven't already.
Okay.
But I probably ought to let you go. I've got somebody trying to
Well,
call me here. That's unusual.
I know, I got a patient coming up, but I thank you so
Very good.
much.
Very good.
All right.
Thank you for your time, and Lee, great to have you back. Let's you and I chat too sometime soon.
Yes. Yeah.
We'll catch up. But have a
All
great
right.
Saturday evening all.
Oh, thank you
Thank
so
you, Hal.
much.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you for the hearts. I'll stay on for a second or two probably.
All right.
Yeah. Again, thanks so much for having her. I know that was a lot of work to arrange.
It was. The funny thing I was going to say just at the end there, when we're talking about
Please.
autoimmune,
Yeah.
real quick, and I mean real quick, is my mother had multiple sclerosis, which,
Mhm.
as we know, is an autoimmune disorder. And we lived in the time in the north of Scotland. And the funny thing they found was when they looked at MS as an illness, it is particular to certain areas of the country, one of them being the north of Scotland. And there are, I don't know where the other places are, but there's like 3 or 4 places in the world that have multiple sclerosis like as a common disorder, and other places that never see a case.
Wow.
And
Amazing.
and they say it might be climate, like the colder, harsher climate or something that brings it on. But it's just like it's one of those things that I remember at the time that, and the north of Scotland had a particularly large cluster of it.
Wow. I have a, cousin who has it, and I'm deathly afraid of getting it myself.
I used to be
Yeah.
scared because my mother's father had it.
Hmm.
And although it was never diagnosed as such, he was in the Korean War. And when he came back, he started developing all these weird symptoms that they associated with a tick. They said, oh, he must have been bitten by a tick, and it was
Like Lyme's
like a
disease.
Lyme kind of thing. Yeah, he
Yeah.
was never properly diagnosed, but the symptoms were very similar. And then my mother got it, and my mother had a traumatic stroke. Funnily, you mentioned your wife with the stroke. She had a stroke at 16,
Wow.
and she was told she would never walk again. But she decided to prove the doctors wrong, and she did.
That's so important, right? It's just like your mindset too,
Yeah,
changed your chemistry, and,
yeah.
it can really do a lot for you if you have an attitude. But my wife has quite an attitude. I have to have her on sometime. We wanted to do a pillar and mirror kinda
Have
thing.
your wife on with Colette, and we'll just sit back.
Yeah, actually, though, my wife is not so talkative. She usually is just very cutting,
Yeah,
which I need. It
yeah,
keeps me straight. Well, I'll let you go, but thank
yeah.
you
That
so
was
much
great
again.
tonight, Hal. Thank you again for letting us
Always a delight.
bend your ear, or letting her bend your ear. Even I didn't get a word in edgeways.
I know, I felt bad. A little
I
I
was
didn't
trying to referee. Let Hal talk.
I don't need to actually. There was so much information, and
Yeah,
luckily it'll be transcripted too. Well, I'll have to look at the transcript and edit it though, probably because bet a lot of those acronyms are not going to come through right.
yeah, well, probably. All right, Hal.
Out of here.
I will go and have dinner now.
You too.
All
Well,
right,
also, I've
bye
got to
for
call
now.
my friend. Talk to you later.
Bye.